Q&A. I'm not going to go into them in great depth because I think we'll probably get the most benefit out of it, out of the Q&A, but it'll trigger hopefully some ideas for you. So let's start back at the beginning with planting our new blog. And there we go. What are you going to blog about? Something that Susan mentioned earlier on. It really is important to, if you're at that stage, to start thinking very carefully about it. And the reason for that is that, back in the early days when we were starting out in blogging, there weren't that many other people. But now, it's just simply not an open field anymore. Blogging has taken off. I mean, we complain as travel writers that this is an aspirational industry and everybody's, crowding into our space. It's even more so, obviously, with bloggers because there's no entry restriction. So, you're likely to be just one blade of grass among many. Now, this was the state of Mary Ann's garden when we came back from holiday in the summer, having planted all this turf, and by then then it was just that big, and this is what it grew into. But you can see, I mean, the thingy is buried in there, and that's a bit like the state of the internet right now. Early adopters, they have a huge advantage, and in a sense, it doesn't really matter how good your blog is. If it's a general travel blog, an adventure blog, food travel blog, or a culture travel blog, or a luxury travel blog for that matter, you're going to be competing with everybody else who does that. So how do you stand out? You have to have a niche. So you don't think about doing a luxury travel blog, because everybody's doing that. But you do something that's luxury-centered, that you have an expertise and an enthusiasm for. So it might be airlineloungery.com or lingerie.com or something. If you don't do activity travel, you could actually hone in on one particular activity. It could be mountain climbing or diving or biking in Europe. I know a fabulous French blogger who just writes about diving around the European coast and has a huge following. So if you can do that, that's really important. And to use gardening terminology, you really need to drill down to find the core of your interest, the favourite part of your favourite subject.
Or drinking.
Drinking. In the case of Susan, that's drinking. In this, I put this up because I've talked about this many times. Flyfishinginalaska.com is this mythical blog that doesn't exist. Actually, there's a couple of blogs that come close to it. And it was created as a talking point in a presentation by Janice Waugh, Canadian, writes solotraveler.com, and she was using it to illustrate the whole point about niche, because niche is very, very powerful. If you are somebody who has cabins out in the outback, or you're a fishing supplier or an outfitter, or you fly the float planes in, or whatever it might be, this is an audience. Maybe it's only 2,000 people, but this is an audience that you would actually pay to get alongside. So it doesn't matter about scale when you're dealing with this kind of thing. Simon and I were talking on the way here about a couple of niche bloggers we know. There's a guy in Holland, Daniel Duclos, who writes a blog about Amsterdam, but it's not even about Amsterdam. It's about a part of Amsterdam that he lives in, and it's not even in English or Dutch. It's actually in Portuguese for a Brazilian audience, and he has a colossal following because there aren't that many blogs in Portuguese talking about European destinations. As a result, they all gateway through Amsterdam, and he kind of hands them on into the rest of Europe. So, and you had a similar one that you were talking about. It's amazing what little niches you can find. So. You need to find, if you don't have a niche, you need to find an angle. And if you haven't got Even if you have a niche, then an angle is always good. And by angle, I mean something again that Susan talked about, something that's unique to you. If you can't or don't want to go niche, or it's too late and you've already started, then start to think about what you can offer that nobody else can, or very few people. An expertise, a technique, a skill. It could be that you are absolutely the dog's what's-its on editing 360-degree video, or podcasting. You could be a supreme cook and you create your own recipes and you create a theme around that, around where you're traveling, buying ingredients from the market or something like that. Usually bloggers fall back on their unique voice, something again that Susan was talking about. But if you're a family travel parent blogger, then you're one amongst thousands and you have to have a pretty loud voice. So I think it's really important to see if you can find an angle. Kash Bhattacharya, who I think some of you will know, very well known, very successful blogger, he says that you need to let your readers see clearly what the value proposition of your brand is by giving them 3 or 4 unique reasons to visit, so that when you start out, you maybe want to write them down on the list so you know clearly what it is that you're trying to achieve. This didn't go on.
What I'm trying to achieve is to make money.
Aha, we'll come on to that.
So how do you make money out of millions of people who...
I will come on to that.
Fine, I was hoping you would.
This is Eric. Eric van Erp. He's a lovely Dutchman, and he's a bit of a geek. He's an SEO expert and consultant and all-round good news. And while we're here, by the way, you can ignore him, for example. Some of you... Anybody recognise? Yeah, Martina Jamnig from Austria. I think that's the back of Becky Enright, who we're hoping is going to be a member at some point soon. And this is Nina, German blogger. I'm not going to go in, not trying to pronounce her name. And she's renowned for her skills with a pencil. So when you see her there, what she's actually doing is this. And she's just taking notes on the she does these doodles on what people are talking about, and you can see the skill there. And this is therefore what she brings to her blog. She brings in elements of graphics. She draws cocktail glasses or whatever it might be. And where I'm going with this is when I'm talking about an angle. If there's something that you do that's unique to you, then it's something that's easy for people to recognise. They'll go, oh, Nina, she's the she's the cocktail, the person who draws, or somebody is a classic one on Instagram is Rich McCaw, Paper Boyo. He's the one who does the cutouts of things like making a bicycle out of the London Eye, or he holds these cutouts up and then takes a picture of them, and everybody recognises it. And if you've got something like that you can bring to the party, that's very good. But back to Eric. Eric is quite an authority on where things are going and on try to get this thing to work. There we go. On developing blogs right from the start. And he has 3 questions that he asks. Where do you want to be found 2 years from now? And what he means by that is Dutch, really. What he means by that is, what do you want to be known for? What do you want to be a centre of authority for? Come on, here we go. Is there a market for it? Jeremy's question. And is it big enough? And 3, can you make money off these topics? And that's something that's really important when you're starting out to be thinking about, because I think one of them, we tend to look at this from a traditional angle as traditional journalism. We look at it through editorial eyes when we don't look at it through publishers' eyes. For bloggers, this is a business, and you have to have all the top bloggers will tell you. You have to have a business plan. You have to have goals. You have to have targets that you want to reach by a certain point, and that's why he's asking these questions. You need to think about this stuff before you really get underway.
Can I just add something to that? Because you asked me about why I started a second blog.
Yeah.
Okay, travel I found did not have that much money in it. So when I started, now this happened organically. I really love the bartenders. When I went on prep trips, I was like, can we just go to the bar? I'm so sick of eating. There's so much eating. And then I found that there was something in it because I like to talk to bartenders. Oh, why don't I interview them? I don't see a podcast, so I'm going to do it. So that was totally organic. But then I looked at how much Diageo spent on their marketing. I just Googled Diageo marketing. And in 2015, they spent $2.4 billion on marketing, and I thought, you know what? There's money in that. I'd love someone to sponsor my podcast. Now, they don't do it yet, because I'm starting to network and everything, but that was definitely, so can you make money off those topics? I just wanted to add that as a personal thing, all right?
Yeah.
Okay?
That,
2.5 billion just in marketing alone, okay?
And Susan's absolutely right. That I think you've got to look at it as a business, and this is all the top bloggers will tell you this isn't easy. I mean, look, theoretically, you think, oh, well, you know, like everybody says to us as travel writers, you swan around the world, you write it up a bit, and blah blah blah. But it ain't. That all of the Premier Division bloggers work. If they're not working 7 days a week, they're working 6.5, and they are at it, continuously throughout the day. Yeah.
Obviously, drinks companies have huge budgets, but surely if you're good and you aim to be the best in any niche market, then it doesn't matter if you're not working with high-paying brands. So, for example, let's say I want to write about theatre festivals around the world.
About what? Sorry, about
theatre festivals.
Yeah. Yep.
Theatre isn't renowned for having big.
Yeah.
And it's not big marketing. It's not drinks manufacturers. But if I became the best blog for that, then surely there would be some money in it.
Yes, there would. And a good example of that would be, again, Kash Bhattacharya, who started Must Love Festivals as a hashtag. Now, what he does is he gets a team of people to go around festivals, writing them up, and they get paid by the DMOs, the National Tourist Offices, who run those festivals, and they charge quite a lot of money for it. But it all comes out in blog form online, social media, and e-books, and that's the way they do it.
I'm so sorry, what was his name again?
Kash Bhattacharya, Kash. Kash.
It's budgettraveler.com.
Budgettraveler.com. My 3 questions. Like I say, do you have a niche? If not, what makes you different? But if you can't answer either of these two, then maybe, maybe plan B, but that's, Okay. So, going back to the beginning again, think about site structure, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but that's one of the other things to be thinking about, and Susan's already touched on it anyway, so we hardly need to go there. So, promoting your blog. Nobody said that this was going to be easy work. The essential is, and again Susan's touched on it, what you want to do is cross-brand. In other words, the same name, the same logo, as far as you can get it across a number of social media channels. Now, I personally, and you think you said more or less the same thing. I personally don't think that you need to kill yourself on this, in the sense that I think you pick the ones that work for you on this. So Twitter, I think, is one that everybody should promote on. You should have a brand name that matches your logo, so that everybody recognizes it. You should have your logo in there, and then use it as an index. That's what Twitter is. Well, now it's changed, now it's expanding, maybe not so much. But you think of Twitter as being, the card index in the library. The library is where all the stuff is. Index is just the stuff that points to it. So that's Twitter. And the important thing about Twitter is that you most things actually you can pre-schedule. So it's a good idea to set up the week in advance and just have tweets go out, particularly at your key times. If you follow Susan's advice and you have Google Analytics and you see where people come in, and in fact on Twitter itself, I think the analytics on your page show you where most of your tweets are read, what time of day. So you can go. I know for me personally, I think probably for most people, that period around 5 o'clock in the afternoon is always a strong one. So I schedule tweets for not 5 o'clock. Everybody schedules stuff for 5 o'clock. Schedule it for an odd number. Schedule it for 4:48 or something, or 4:47 or something like that, because then you won't be in amongst. You know that thing on Twitter where suddenly the page goes whoomp, and there's a whole pile of tweets suddenly appear in there. So you want to, if you can, schedule it for an odd number. Instagram, it's the big boy in the park at the moment, the sexy one. It depends if you like Instagram or not. Certainly, I find that I get a lot more engagement through Instagram in a way that I don't perhaps with others. But I'm not particularly keen on it, so I do it in a limited way. Facebook is one I think that you need to. I think again, Susan was saying, you set up your Facebook page and you put your posts in there, and you also on Facebook you can discuss those things which are kind of in your topic area, but you haven't actually written about on your own blog, but you can have that discussion on Facebook in that way. YouTube, second largest search engine in the business. We'll come into that in a moment, but video is, as Susan said, is somewhere where all of us need to be looking. So it would be a good thing to set up a YouTube channel. At least in preparation, and you can put odd things on there when you get the chance. Natasha?
Facebook. Does one need to have a business Facebook page, or can we do it on a personal level?
You can do it on the personal level if you are absolutely barked by nobody else. I will, when I see something absolutely fuckwit stupid that Boris Johnson has said, I'm afraid I rise to the bait. So I will post on my Facebook person page, but business wise I'll always do it on my Mech Traveller page. So
I should go on. I should establish a business.
Create a business page. Yeah. And there's another reason which I'm going to come to in a moment. Yeah.
I certainly find having the two is a great advantage. Your personal page is your personal page. It's your friends, your family, things like this. They don't want to read what you're doing all the time. They know what you're doing. Set up a separate Facebook page for your business, and it's amazing the number of followers you get.
It's definitely worth doing. I would say, actually, I've gone one stage further. I right from the beginning had 2 Facebook accounts. So I have a domestic account that has nothing to do with business, so none of my family see what's going on, and vice versa. But Antonio.
And with Facebook, I've heard a few bloggers talking about the fact that they administrate groups.
Yep.
So they set up groups, and then they have 4,000 members of this group. So let's say
just in the way that we do with the guild. So you can create.
Like
and if you set it up.
To marketers as well, can you say I've got, I manage a group that's got 4,000 people in. Do they
absolutely, they like that. They know that, and if you set it up, then you are, and because all of this comes down to, and this is what the promotion thing is all about. It comes down to establishing your credentials as a centre of authority, and anything that does that, running a community that talk about that particular subject, cocktails or whatever it might be, that's absolutely the right thing. Go.
Just to add one more thing, if you have a business Facebook page, I've found that if you have videos on there, they get a far better reception than just pictures. Do a video, anything between 40 seconds and 1.5 minutes, and you'll get a tremendous amount of likes.
Video is, you're absolutely right, and you should do exactly what he says. Just be wary of the stats, because we know that on Facebook and I think on Instagram, a view is counted as a view after 3 seconds, whereas on YouTube it's after 15 or 20 or something like that. So it's a different kind of playing field. Antonio.
Sorry, one more question. Susan said that a blog is very much not a portfolio. But is there room in Facebook for us as journalists? Should we have a page, like should I have an Antonia Windsor, the travel writer, page, where I link to all my national press articles?
Yeah, you can certainly do that. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah. The trick is not to get too carried away, because when I was saying up here about, at least 3 and near daily, I mean, this is a lot of work. So, if you've got one page that's you, and then you've got one page that is your drinks page or whatever it is, and you also got all the other social media platforms, suddenly it becomes like a lot of work. So you need to be you need to be kind of balanced about this. And it was interesting this last couple of weeks, the Social Travel Summit in Austria, where those photographs were taken. There were a couple of speakers there who were talking about sort of the state, where we've got to. And there's definitely this mood in the blogosphere as such, the travel blogosphere, that we've all been, tearing through that, what we thought was an open playing field, the wide open spaces, the American prairie, heading for this sort of great goal, and actually exhausting ourselves. And interestingly, now there's such a volume of of material out there, posts and everything else, that the focus now is not so much on quantity and churning out lots and lots of stuff, but actually on quality and making the stuff really relevant and apposite. It had to happen, you're right, because everybody was just getting too exhausted. Yeah, Natasha, yeah.
LinkedIn, I'm finding all of a sudden loads of people want to buy.
Yeah, good one. I didn't actually think about it and put it in. I should have done, really. But LinkedIn is a good generator of feeds, of links, visits rather.
To encourage people should one accept?
Well, the good thing about LinkedIn is that it does have this aura of professionalism about it. So if you write posts about your subject in LinkedIn, because you can use LinkedIn to actually write articles and posts and so on and so forth, it does give you a lot of credibility that you might not get elsewhere. And so, yeah, I think it's a good one. But I think what I'm really saying is you've got to pick the ones that kind of suit you. Alan.
Sorry, Al.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, I think, it can be good, but you need to go into the groups on LinkedIn
to make the most of it.
That you actually deal with. Yeah. Because there is a tourist group on there is a cruise group on there. Go into those. That's where you'll get known.
Yep.
And I was going to say, on the Facebook page, definitely link everything in. I link all my television shows in.
Yeah. Definitely a good idea. There's somebody over here trying to get my attention, but I never pay any attention. Go on.
It's true. Is it worth using something like Buffer? Does it actually?
Yeah, for scheduling and yeah.
What's it called? We'll talk about
Buffer.
scheduling.
Yeah, well,
maybe after we'll talk about scheduling. When he talks about scheduling stuff, what that means.
Okay, that's really my intention, to try and get the ideas here. Okay, so the rest of them, Pinterest we've already talked about. It's very good for visual, and particularly good with women. Snapchat, I'm not keen on Snapchat. I know some people who swear by it, but there you go. Quora is an interesting one. Quora is, I saw a marketing director the other day on one of those, where are we going in the future? What are the hot new trends? Saying that he thinks that Quora is a sleeping giant. I've just recently started playing with it, and it is very interesting because Quora is a question and answer site, and literally you go on there and people ask. A lot of them are sort of inane questions. But if you're in a particular topic area, then it's where a lot of people go to get questions answered. And if you can answer them, then suddenly they go, and particularly if you can point to somewhere where you've written about it more extensively, then suddenly they start following you. I've noticed since I started doing it, particularly we talked about Google Analytics. I've noticed that in my social media, people who come to me through social media, that Quora is already beginning to rise up the chain. Yeah.
Names, massive, business, tech, people like this who really have authority.
Honestly, have a look at Quora. I think it's good. I've put Google Plus in here because
Just look at it.
I've put Google Plus in here because I'm known for always talking about Google Plus. I still like it. It's I much prefer writing on Google Plus than I do on bloody Facebook. And I do get good engagement on Google Plus. In fact, I have more followers on Google Plus than I have on Twitter. So yeah, it's a good one. I missed off Vimeo. Yeah, you're right. It's not.
Vimeo is a more professional.
It is.
Video.
Jeremy is absolutely right. He's talking with a cameraman's eye. Vimeo is widely acknowledged to be a superior platform in terms of quality and also in terms of editorial content. I think there's a lot of really good material on there. It doesn't have the same search engine capability as or influence as YouTube. But have a look at Vimeo as well if you like, because again, if you're getting into video, then that would Vimeo, Vimeo, then that would be a good idea. Right. Oops. Gone too far now. One of the things that I think is important to do, and again, Susan kind of touched on this, is targeting your potential readers and the brands that you want to work with. So draw up a list of the travel providers or tour operators that you'd really like to work with. In Susan's case, Diageo, and then make sure that you include them in your social media activity, their handles and so on, because sooner or later, as she said, they will pick up on the fact that you're a fanboy for whatever it is, or fangirl, and want to engage with you, and that's definitely a good move when it comes to promoting.
If you start off Facebook and you have nothing, because I just went to Brit Mom's, Alistair was there live, and there was a woman talking about Facebook ads, using Facebook. She said, about ads, do it if you have a big following. And I said, look, I have no following on the Lush Life Manual. I think I have my friends, 81 likes, because they're my friends. How do you start? And she said, because it was so long ago that I started Best Bits, that she's like, we have to engage with people. So forget the ads for a second, just start engaging. So that means if Diageo writes something, I'm just using them as an example, then I like it. Or I write something like, oh my God, I want to try this drink. Same with the bartenders I like and stuff like that.
And it's a very short step then to your becoming a regular. I mean, for example, we were talking about Pinterest just now. Ninka Crook, who's a Dutch blogger, lives in the UK, writes in English. She became like the Pinterest girl because she was such an authority on Pinterest and how it worked. The Pinterest then picked up on her and started paying her to go and speak at conferences and things like that. It's a short hop to becoming in effect, a brand ambassador. And that's part of Jeremy asking about, where do you make your money from? We're not anymore just writers. We are businessmen and women. We are publishers, and we make our money where we can. So if you can, for example, build a link with brands that you want to work with, and you might do that not just on social media. You might write a book or a research paper about that topic. You can pitch to newspapers, to conferences, all those kind of people, in order to basically sell your center of authority, and that turns into real hard cash. And when I say cash, I'm speaking of cash himself, because last year I noticed this a couple of days ago in one of his papers, research paper. Last year he made 120,000 euros in sponsorship and consultancy and affiliates. Cash Bhattacharya, yeah. And he writes for Budget Traveller. I know. But he does have those other things. He also has the love festivals and so on and so forth. So it's a good. Yeah, I know.
That tactic might work in older media if we engage with editors.
Yeah, because normal media, they watch these things as well. Elizabeth Knight picked up like that when I basically said that did we think that the Times was having a bit of a Telegraph was having a bit of a joke about with this particular travel piece, because it looked and smelt and floated and quacked exactly like a sponsored post, or at least a hosted trip, and they hadn't put anything in, and she went for me very quickly, or actually didn't go for me, but she basically jumped up and said, oh no, we're very good about all this. So yeah, they're watching all the time, and if they see somebody, travel brands see somebody, destinations operating in their pool, if they notice John Ruler up there in Nord, Eau-de-France now, then they'll quickly go, oh yeah, actually this is good. We can use him to promote our latest things, or go and see them and review them.
Having said that, so funnily enough, I was thinking, going right back, talking about niche subjects.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's one. I've got 4. How on earth do I come? They're not really linked.
You need to talk to Susan about that, because you don't want to dissipate the Coming back to the social media platforms themselves, this is something slightly shocking that came out of STS. Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and Pinterest and all the others, they don't do this because they love us and they want to provide this fabulous service for it. They want to make money out of it. And as Instagram, particularly Instagrammers will know, the amount of audience, the followers that you have, that you now reach, the algorithms have been dropping away and dropping away. They called it, this is a slide of somebody else's slide, this guy called Nick Westergaard. He calls it reach-pocalypse, but it's it doesn't really work really, because the scales are obviously different. But the point is, what he's saying is that the actual amount of people that you reach from, say, 12% back in October last year, is heading down as the Facebook stock price is heading up. And that's very simply because people are having now to pay to reach audiences. And where in the past we all as bloggers and influencers used to rubbish the idea of paying, because it's all about, we're personalities and it's engagement, and we can build organically. That's no longer the case, and it's now being. I heard at least 3 people at STS speaking, saying you need to include now in your marketing mix. Boosting Facebook posts, paying money for Facebook posts, boosting tweets, or bidding for AdWords on Google. Now, I don't know if any of you have done any of these things, but again, we can talk about them quite easily afterwards, and I can explain how they work. Where are we going? Oh, next. Next. Right. Weeding and fertilizing, aka SEO. There's SEO you can talk about for till the cows come home. Another gardening analogy. But I think there were some things I picked up just recently, again at STS, that and from Eric mostly. A social travel summit. It's a blogger conference that or influencer conference that mixes brands with the Premier Division influencers. There were a couple of things that came out of it. Site structure was one. It's something you can actually address, as it were, after the fact. Susan talked about how you would lay out, on your homepage, for example, things like the menu and all the rest of it. Site structure is something that's very important to Google, because Google, all the search engines actually, but we only really need to worry about Google, reads sites from top to bottom, left to right. Unless you're writing in Arabic, in which case it'll do it the other way around. But what it's trying to do is it's trying to get a sense of what this page is about. And so if you can put what it's about early on, so categories is a classic thing. If you're first on your menu bar, if you have categories first, then it begins to smell what this is about. This is about spirits and wines and beers and so on and so forth. About should probably be somewhere in the other direction, unless your about page is littered with keywords. best to let Google see what it is you do first in the menu. Fewer tags. We all use tags like confetti for absolutely everything. But again, actually what Google's really interested in is categories. If you can separate things into more categories and subcategories and use fewer tags, only maybe for every post, 3 sort of key tags, then that helps things enormously. This is a new one on me. Image file names. Who knew? We've all been filling in those. We all know that when we got to HTML, whether it was 5 or whatever, suddenly you and Google and everybody else you had to have the alt tag in there. The alt tag's the one where you say, you've got a caption for your picture of a elephant's arse as it walks down the road, and you've captioned it, Big Ed striding through the undergrowth or something like that. But the alt tag is what somebody sees if that photograph doesn't load, and it tells them at least what it was about. It's an elephant's arse going down the road. So we know to fill those in again with sort of key names and all the rest. But I didn't know, and this is something that I think is a comparatively new development with Google algorithms. Google also looks at the names that you give to your files. So in the past, I've been like everybody else, simply sticking the name in that was the camera on my phone allocated it. DSC 1444 dot thingy.
You have to make it.
Yeah, now what you want to do is do elephant _arse. And apparently that is making quite a big difference. So that's a hot one. And sorry, yeah.
When you upload a photo, you have to caption it. When you upload a photo,
Yeah, well, no, caption's not quite so important, although it helps. But the main things are alt and file names. Keywords. Keywords are really important, and we all know this from about SEO, and Susan was saying earlier on. Again, it's keywords get you to reach an audience, and you can find ways of searching for keywords that will work with the sort of topic that you're talking about. But it also, of course, helps Google to know exactly what you're talking about.
Barcelona Hotel.
Yeah.
Things to do in Barcelona.
Exactly that. And I thought one of the things that was really interesting, and that's why I wanted to share it with you, was Eric basically did a little sort of case study trip when he went to Emilia Romagna, and he based the itinerary ahead of going there entirely on SEO keywords. So he'd gone in, searched for when you put in Emilia Romagna, what's the first keywords that come up? So he basically then built a series of posts, but a couple of posts in particular, based around those keywords, and made sure he got them in key phrases. And he said, where was it? He put 2 articles, Milan and Bologna. Both articles pushed themselves up in search results, ranking really high 1 year after its publication, i.e. the following travel season, it had 10,000 to 20,000 visitors a month just on that one article, because it was going straight there. This is what people wanted to know. So he's sort of turned it around. He's reverse engineering it. And I think keywords, as Susan said, it's a really important subject. If you can use keywords, one of the other tricks is, and I don't do this, but I should, is, as Susan says, you put keywords in your title for an article, but when you want to be witty or clever or whatever, you put those in the subtitles in the halfway down the article. And that makes me also think, while I'm on the subject, we mentioned Yoast just now. Come to it. Yoast was the plugin one of the plugins that Susan recommended. I don't think I know a serious blogger who doesn't have Yoast. It's kind of I don't know how to describe it. It's brilliant, and it's it can also, you can get too engaged with it. But the point about Yoast is it does 2 things. It adds a whole series of fields to the bottom of a post when you're writing it that you can then fill in. So you can specify descriptions of what it is. So a second description, what we used to call at the top of a page meta tag, yeah, the meta description, I think it was. You can do all of that, but more importantly, what it does is it all the time it's checking up on your post, and it'll say to you, not enough. You mentioned the keyword in the first thing, or you haven't mentioned the first thing, so it gives you a traffic light system. And what you're trying to do desperately is get to a green light and not have an orange one, and all too often getting a red one.
You didn't fill in the alt tags, or you should.
Exactly, and it'll pick that up. So it'll say, you haven't written enough subtitles in there, and so it's because Google loves subtitles because it tells it, what the key points are in this wordy tome that you've written. Different to keyword stuffing, yeah. It doesn't, yeah. Now we also know that fabulous American woman who does SEO, who I remember saying at Cardiff, don't let Yoast dominate your life, because that way ends in madness. But it is a very useful tool, and it also will check on your writing as well. It applies the Fleischmann-Hillard algorithms, and it'll say, yeah, I ignore all that, but Yoast is definitely worth having, and it'll also enable you to target meta tags, particularly for particular kinds of audience. So for not just for PC, for tablets, and for mobiles as well. So it's a handy plugin to have. Antonia, Yoast, Yoast.
Just your Emilia Romagna example, what was he doing? Like, how do you find the most...
He went. He uses.
Clever.
Yeah, he's a big data geek, and he uses all kinds of tools. But for the mere mortals like you and I, the best thing to do is go to. But go to if you go to Google. I was getting the wrong way around. AdWords, where you can advertise. You can put in keywords to see what the bidding is for it, and that gives you the clue on what the essential keywords are. So if you
so if I then want to put in Emilia Romagna, they might say Parmesan or
exactly.
Other things,
that's it. That's exactly it. Yeah. So right. Oh, sorry.
Luddites. What do you mean, first of all, by tags, and what do you mean by subtitles?
Tags. Subtitles. I mean anything you put in your post. After the first couple of paragraphs, and then you get on to eating in wherever it is. It's what you would apply an H2 or an H3 or an H4 tag to. In other words, it's a lower form of It's a lower when you're on that page and you're writing your post, and you go up to the buttons that highlight stuff, turn it bold or italics or whatever. There's one that says what kind of text this is. Is this a paragraph, or is it a subheading, or what? And it's the subheadings basically.
So it's like the title of your blog, say 5 things to do in Emilia Romagna. That's your H1. So that's your title. All right, your headline. Your first heading. Then you can put eating in so you would do a little paragraph. Oh, this is the first time I ever went. Blah 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 blah.
It's exactly the same as print. It's
a
subsection.
It's your subtitle. So then you'll say, so I'm going to talk about eating in Emilia Romagna. So that'll be your heading 2. And then you write about that, and then maybe you have eating Parmesan, and that'll be your heading 3. Okay.
Yeah. So Google says, this is. I love the way Petra writes. This is fabulous, esoteric stuff. But I'm not quite sure exactly what it means. But immediately above it, she's got a subheading that says eating seafood in Naples. So there's the clue.
Do you have to go to the top bar to show it's a subtitle, or do you just put the subtitle?
No, you just highlight that you select that piece of text, and hit subtitle or subtitle, and it'll do it for you.
Sounds like Control V.
Yeah. Okay. So have I done everything on that? Yeah, that was a big one. Okay. The thinking ahead, the future. Just a couple of things I was going to mention in this. We all know, because everybody's been talking about it for ages, that two of the sort of big trends are video, more and more video, Jeremy will weep at this because he knows what the standard is and all the rest of it. But video, good or bad, is more increasingly important, and particularly on mobile. And live streaming, what we're doing here. Again, it's one of those things that more and more people are getting into, and more visitors are enjoying and wanting more of. So if you begin to build up a reputation for live streaming at the drop of a hat, then that is a good thing.
Just say something about video. Anybody who's using a phone for video, for Christ's sake, turn it around.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I know. Drives me mad too.
And we're professionals, so don't put up stuff that looks amateur.
No.
You're supposed to put it on horizontal.
Yeah. What is? It depends on them. Yeah, Instagram like square things, and but yeah, exactly. No, it's but I think one of the key things with this is if you're using your phone, hold it up. And hold it up in the attitude at which you're going to take it. Don't start like that and then go, oh yes, and then turn it, because it'll already, it'll basically turn the thing on its side, and your readers will be doing this to watch the video. So the future is mobile. Yeah, you need to think in terms of mobile. I was at a Focusrite conference in Amsterdam in the summer, and it is all about this is tech, it's travel tech, and it was all about Asia, and Asia is all about mobile. Everything happens on their phones, and that's.
I forget to say that, and most themes do this, but make sure when you're picking a theme that it's called responsive, so that it looks good on a mobile, any kind of mobile, iPad, whatever. All right, so it changes, so it looks good. It's called responsive. Yeah, and
it does make a difference, and you'll see it if you've got one of those themes. What looks magnificent and spread out over your desktop screen or your laptop, when you see it on a mobile, it tends to stack, and so you just you.
Try my iWeb.
It wasn't doing it. Yeah. And the other thing is that Google also recognizes that mobile is the future, and introduced a standard a little while back called AMP. AMP is Accelerated Mobile Pages, and you can now get, for WordPress blogs, you can get a plugin that will set your blog to accelerated mobile page standards, and that means they load quicker, and we were talking earlier about how crucial that is, because people will go away if it doesn't load fast. And the future is voice search. This is something we've all been aware of, how you can talk to your phone and so on. But of course, the game has now changed with the introduction of these personal assistants at home. Alexa now for Amazon, and people are going to be becoming increasingly used to this. In fact, already they are in the States. I think they say that something like 40% already of queries, searches on Google in the States are done by voice, and that's only going to accelerate away. Now, why is that important? Well, it's important for two reasons. One, because fortunately, for the most part, people do tend to write, when they're querying Google, the way that they would say it, so that's a plus. But you want to be thinking about that when you're writing copy, and particularly titles and things. You want to be able to write titles that you would say naturally, that people, that answer the question, how do I go fly fishing in Alaska? Your headline should be how to go fly fishing in Alaska. So that's important. The other thing that's important about it is it puts increasing pressure on us to be good at all this, because if you think about it for a moment, there you are at home and you say, Alexa, show me the next, the cheapest flights to Hong Kong, or the best hotel room, or whatever it might be, the best blog on this. Unlike a web page or your phone, you're not going to get what we call SERPs. Search engine result pages. You're not going to get 10. you're going to switch off after the first one. It's the first one that's going to be important. It narrows it down even more. So, you know, you always used to say being buried on the second, third, fourth page of Google is, you know, out on the long tail. You really need to be on that in those first 10. Now it's even worse than that. You need to be in the top one, because otherwise they're not going to pick you up. So that's the future. Yeah, Q&A.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Should we bother with cookie consent?
Oh, yeah, it is. I know. I think this is a really difficult one. The truth is, yeah, we're supposed to. I mean, cookie consent is something you should do in the same way that you should now, and Google will watch for this in a big way. Have a certificate, a security certificate, so you can have an HTTPS address. Technically, you should. I don't think it's as crucial. I don't think I should probably talk to Eric or somebody about this, but my impression is that the algorithms aren't penalising if you don't. So I think you have to play it by ear, because yes, you're right, they can be a real pain in the arse. They can slow up and put people off. I don't know about you, but for me, I mostly just ignore them, and they come at the bottom of the screen and so on. I would say that if you're going to do it, make it as minimal an impact as possible, so you don't have to click on it. You can get on with wandering around the site. And when you go onto the second page, it will, you know, automatically infer that you've consented and you're away.
If you use C cleaner, it cleans them all off anyway.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, but you know, no, you're right. But it's software that stops them from coming up.
For me personally, I just like to say thank you to both of you for an excellent evening.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
It's
blimey.
actually showing what the future is, and as I've said for the last couple of years, in 10 years' time, print will not exist. This is the future.
I think I think there is still a place for print, and I think also that you should you should also include it in part of your marketing mix. You know, that's what I'm getting at about bloggers. Bloggers aren't like traditional journalists. Bloggers make money wherever they can, and that could be. That's a point. The Guild isn't paying me to stand here, but it should be. So you know, it can be speaking at conferences. It can be writing and selling ebooks. It can be actually quite a lot of bloggers now are running tours. So Amanda, for example, can't forget her second name. It is marocmama.com. She writes about the food in Morocco. She's essentially a food blogger, and particularly in Marrakesh. And of course, off the back of that, loads of Americans, everybody else, come bowling in and go on her tours, and they make an absolute fortune. Her and her husband.
Spain.
Yeah.
Blogger about Spain, and
yeah.
now it's developed Barcelona, Malaga, Madrid. She does food tours everywhere.
Yep. And there's an increasing number of bloggers who are doing that. I think the very first one was probably Gary Arndt. I remember writing something on Travel with 5 Ls back in, oh God, I can't think of 2011, about why is it that bloggers, since they're such experts on, you know, particular areas and things like, why aren't they doing tours? And he emailed me within a second of it being published and said, actually, I'm about to start one with Nomad Tours, or no, it was the Casey's lot. G-Adventures, and it was a photographic tour in the Arizona desert with Gary Arndt.
David Leibowitz, famous writer for the New York Times Food. He's been doing that for ages in Paris, and so was Vivian Kelly, who wrote for Gourmet magazine, and she's in Italy. She does hundreds of. I once asked, "Can I do your tour and write about it?" She's like, "Yeah, it's $700 a day. If you'd like to go on the tour."
So
blogging is a stepping stone to something else.
Yeah, I think that's really the core of it. I mean, what we're saying is, don't think of it as a binary thing. It's actually you use. One of the things that's important, and it's something I didn't really say when I was talking about the how the platforms are using, the algorithms are not working anymore, so you have to pay to get on them and so on and so forth. that a lot of people got burnt, particularly on Instagram, on that. And now the general word amongst the community is don't forget your blog, because your blog is the one thing you can control. Facebook can suddenly decide that they want to make you pay for absolutely everything, or Twitter can go bust tomorrow. And if you're completely heavily invested in one of their platforms, then you're screwed. But your blog is your own.
Is money in the bank. I mean, when I started Lush Life Manual, I cheekily just took I have about 700 subscribers on Basketball Live, so they get my newsletter every week, every time I post something. I just said, all right, I'm going to steal that list and put it to Lush Life Manual. I've had 3 people unsubscribe out of that. So, they're like, okay, well, she's doing this as well. So they get both, all right? And only 3 people unsubscribed. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I thought I was going to get emails saying, how dare you? So, just as long as you treat them nicely.
Simon, do we have any queries on...
I missed your speech on most of it. How much does it cost to set up a blog? To actually get yourself technically into a position where you're putting a secure...
Hardly anything. It's
what sort of budget?
Okay. So that business of finding a domain, actually quite often what you can do is you can just kind of combine these things together. So for example, if you go to a lot of the hosts, they will offer domain name search and registration themselves. Yeah. So the answer is registering a domain name. Usually, if you get, let's say, .co.uk, .com, .org, and so on. I know, but that will cost you to start off with probably about 25, 30 quid a year, and then it can begin to go up. The hosting you can do for, I pay. I pay about, I think now my hosting, I've got a couple of things on the site, so it's all bundled together really, but it's, I'm paying about sort of 60 quid a year, something like that. It's, it's chicken feed. It's easy. You can afford to do it. Listen, I'm rebuilding one of my sites, Travel List at the moment, and I bought a theme. Again, themes can be, some are free, but you can get usually most sort of nice, simple themes like as Susan was showing you, again for 30 quid, 40 quid, something like that. I bought a particularly a theme that had a lot of guts to it, a lot of e-commerce and complexity, and it was 90 quid. And the more I got into it, I found myself kind of fighting it. It wasn't working the way I wanted to. It was oriented around the wrong way. Bollocks, threw it out, got another one. 90 quid, we pay that for, my bar bill down the, In terms of a business investment, for Inland revenue purposes and all the rest of it,
it's manageable amount.
Yeah, chicken feed. Yeah.
That's very interesting, because I asked a fellow guild member who does have a good blog what he would recommend, and he said, well, I can put you in touch with the person that does my blog. It will cost you £500.
No, that is the case. The truth is that if you do it yourself, then we're talking, as I say, a chicken feed. If you get somebody else to do it, and again, the Premier Division bloggers, they have staff now. They have PAs, personal or VAs rather, virtual assistants, who manage all their appointments and stuff like that. They have agents, some of them, not so many in travel, lots in fashion, who take 20%, and they have techies. And they literally, people like Michael Turtle and most of the sort of top bloggers. You see the same names, landlopers. Matt, he uses Michael Tissot, who used to be a blogger, and everybody kind of knows, and he runs all his technical stuff. Yeah, but they are making money out of it. For example, there's Chris Richardson, used to be a techie and a blogger here in the UK. He returned to Australia, his home country, with Isabel Kennis, who's a Belgian blogger. They got married, they got kids and all the rest of it, but his business these days is just managing people's blogs for them, doing the techie stuff, repairing the stuff that doesn't work. Sometimes what happens is you have a theme, and WordPress upgrades, but the theme, it does something where the theme doesn't quite work. So I had one with, it was comments. I discovered that you couldn't, visitors couldn't actually, I was thinking, well, it's nobody commenting, couldn't actually write a comment and then hit the button and it would save it. And it was just a little bit of coding. I couldn't have found it, but I got an expert I know to look at it, and actually I say an expert I know too. It was Jacob at the who runs our guild blog, and he took one look at it and went, oh yeah, and fixed it. So you can get people to do favours on a one-off basis, but if you want to do it and be confident, then yes, you do have to pay rates, and they need to earn a living too.
I have a couple of other technical questions. I remember some time ago an email went around that said that if you put pictures on Twitter, that Twitter can then claim the right to those pictures. Is that true?
No, it is. Yeah, it is. It is. And the truth is that they. Yeah, they assume a license. I think is where it is. They can use it, and the fact is they don't, unless you've got a really spectacular picture that they can use.
highly recommend looking at his Instagram feed. It is darling. It is fabulous. He has 300,000.
We interviewed a potential
What's my job? What? Rich McCoy.
Rich McCoy, paper boyo.
With an O at the end.
Oh, sorry.
He has 300,000, but what I pitch is a social media campaign.
Oh, I see.
work with a specific hotel to do something for over a month. They get photos that I do, and so it's marketing. Sorry, so I'm paid for. I pitch marketing campaigns. Okay, it's a marketing campaign. But I always say if I'm going to write the blog, they're not paying for that blog. Okay, I can say what I want.
Do you get your clients online?
No, it's usually personal.
You actually have to contact them.
Well, I know a lot of PRs. Again, I talk about one of the lectures I give is working with PRs.
Get up from your desk and go and visit the clients you're going to.
Nothing.
No.
We could just all join the Chartered Institute of
Yeah,
Marketers.
yeah, we could.
It is.
What's the point?
It's writing well, except that it's this. The people.
This is you. This
is travel.
But it's
But you are. But it is you. You
It's
are.
actually, though, about having a lot of marketing skills. And if something goes wrong technically, I had an issue. The one thing I wanted to bring tonight was that my husband, who is a director of a multinational IT company, got me onto a site that was absolutely rubbish, that went down. It was supposed to be WordPress. It wasn't WordPress. It was a copy of WordPress. I paid somebody hundreds of pounds to bring archived material onto just a normal WordPress blog. But now I say, I want to change my theme. And that person says, oh no, don't change your theme because you might lose all your archive. And I thought, you know what? I know it's not the truth. But I'm just saying, for those of us that aren't technical,
All right.
you can just get taken for a ride.
That's why you have to ask people you know.
It's like a completely different world.
It is.
And it is nothing to do with any of the training I've ever had with photography, journalism, or anything. And you guys throw around names and figures and all sorts of things. All I'm saying is that sometimes I find it a little bit intimidating because I don't know what you're talking about.
That's why I tried to make it really, really simple.
I've had a really bad experience from something that should be simple.
Yeah, I think one of the key things, one of the things that makes a big difference, and the reason that we're able to talk about all these people and trends and so on and so forth, is sort of participating in the community. And so I would absolutely strongly recommend that you go along to something like Traverse, which will happen in Rotterdam next year. There'll be usually about 300 bloggers there, and workshops and things like that. And you get to know, basically tackle all of these subjects in a really practical way, but also kind of get to know the community and talk to others and see how they do it. And or go to BritMums, which we've just had on Saturday last week. BritMums, 5,000 bloggers. The actual, how many people were there? No, not. I don't. Jen's been talking about it for ages. It should be. Last year I remember I did post about it in the somewhere along the lines. I didn't do it this year, but I assumed that she would. But that's
what I think happens, having been to the AGM. Look, I've only been a member for a year and a half. Okay, is that journalists get frustrated that. And please, I'm sorry, I'm speaking for people, and you can definitely tell me if this is wrong or not. Journalists get frustrated that.
What was that money?
No. I don't think it's that. That is not what I was going to say. I think it's people get frustrated when they've been doing something for a long time and then something new comes along. But let me say something that you've all been writing for magazines. This is how people used to look for information about travel, okay? They wanted to go somewhere, they picked up a magazine, they read an article, they picked up a newspaper, they read those articles and said, oh, that sounds really good. What you wrote, that sounds great, all right? I want to go there. People aren't doing that anymore, all right? They are going online. People are now booking. Wait a sec.
We understand that.
Well, people are booking through Instagram now. They don't even go to blogs. They look at it, and the younger they get, they look at an Instagram picture and go, I want to go there. What is that place? All right? So that is what's changing. All we're doing tonight is showing what a blog is. How if you want to do the blog, you don't have to do it. It's just that it's like, I was in a taxi, and he was the first taxi driver who said, I didn't, because when the Uber stuff, I said, when it was happening, oh, you must hate these Ubers. And, they're taking, and the guy said, look, I've been a taxi driver for 40 years. Things change. Why does it take 3 years to do the knowledge? I did it in 10 months. We should be the ones to change, because nothing is static. It's always changing. We as cab drivers need to maybe make our rates lower. If we want to survive, we have to change. It's not Uber's fault. It's not bloggers' fault. It is the way that people are changing and what they're doing. And either you become bitter and go, well, YouTube, their videos are crap. Well, it doesn't matter. As I said, being a good writer has nothing to do with being a good blogger. So you have to get that, the bitterness or whatever, not that I'm saying that you have that, all right? Or that I once sat down next to someone, he said, what do you do? This was a journalist, a blogger. Oh, you're one of those. Well, hi, I'm trying to do a job too. I'm trying to fill in a need, all right? That's what it is. So you don't have to do blogging. It doesn't matter. It's just that if it happens and you hear that they're bloggers also on your press trip, you can say, okay, well, they're business people too, and they're just taking it from a different angle. And so we're trying to write about travel, and most of us are trying to do it well and, not be crap writers or be good writers. I mean, am I wrong in that?
I mean, one of the things that I've been talking about recently, and it's become a theme now for me, is what I'm really calling sort of consolidation, because we've started off with all these kind of organisations. We've got the British Guild of Travel Writers, for example. We've got the iAmbassador group of a blogger collective that sell marketing campaigns to destinations and the like. We've got Matador, which is a large publishing house, Travel Dudes, same thing. We've got Traverse, conference organisers and so on. But actually, iAmbassador is Keith Jenkins and so on, and they're the people who started up STS, which is a conference. And all of these things you begin to see are kind of merging together. So there's going to come a point soon. There's no reason why we shouldn't be organising a blogger conference. And for that matter, we've got a website. We can be publishing articles on there and so on. So we could actually become a player in the same way that the newspapers forged their own empires and carved out their own niches. Blogging is not like editing, because we're not being paid by somebody else. So we're not doing that, Gandalf the White thing where we're protecting the output. But the minute Susan's blog actually becomes significantly large, that she's actually now engaging other people and paying them to write posts on the blog, then suddenly she is. But she's the publisher. She's Rupert Murdoch and she's Woodward and Bernstein. And that's the crucial thing. We're still the same people. We still have that, the same ethic that you had. We don't want to. Our readers are the most important thing. So we actually absolutely protect them, and we tell them. One of my sort of key things that I've been banging on about for the last year is about transparency. It's about the all the guidelines that are coming in from the Competition and Markets Authority and so on and so forth. I've got to the point now where I'm saying I think transparency for us as influencers has to go beyond just putting a little thing saying I was hosted by Innsbruck Tourism. I think it has to go to the point where I do a post where I wasn't hosted by anybody in there, and I say that too. On this trip, sometimes I'm posting this trip. I do it quite often with Make Travel. I go to a museum and I went to this museum. I wasn't hosted. I had to pay the ticket. Blah blah blah. And I spell it out. I happened to be on a trip. I was on a road trip to a conference where I was going to be hosted. But this is, and I think we're going to all have to begin to do that more and more. Yeah.
I think one of the problems, Alistair, is that the truth is we are all resistant to change to an extent.
Yeah.
All
right, let Alan finish.
It doesn't mean I'm resistant.
Alan, guys, can he?
We are all resistant to change, and we have difficulty with accepting what is coming along. When I went to school, there were no calculators, we had a slide rule. Times have changed. At 73 years of age, I have found a certain amount of difficulty in coming to terms with modern technology. To an extent, I've managed it. But what I have found is, and this is over the last 12 months in particular, because I'm fairly new to this, as everyone knows, new PRs who have been in touch with me, they're not asking what newspapers I write for or what magazines I'm writing for. They are interested, how many Twitter followers have you got? What online magazines do you write for? Where do your articles appear online? Because they know that the future is online. And whilst I've often said that newspapers won't exist in 10 years, and everyone poo-poos it. If I'm wrong, a very simple question. Why have all the newspapers now got online editions?
Oh God, yeah. Yeah.
Why is it that newspaper sales are dropping? Yeah, but why is it newspaper sales are dropping and the online is increasing?
Yeah, they're still making more money from the print editions. Though.
Yeah, but
they may be making money, but the journalists aren't.
We're not making any money anymore.
The journalists aren't. That's
I
the
wrote
thing.
50,000 words last year for a national newspaper.
Which
got
one?
£6,500 in recompense.
Well, the Mirror guys reckon they're still making a lot more money out of their printed versions. Admittedly, they have a daily and two Sundays.
Those of us that
Even
are
though
writing hotel
circulation
reviews for
figures are
Telegraph
dropping,
are getting
they're not
£75
seeing the
a pop
revenue
for that.
from their
You know, we can't make a living on that.
But yeah, you're right.
But
you can't
Alan raises a
stand
good
against
point, and perhaps one we should finish on.
the tide of time.
I think he's absolutely right. We got one question?
We have, but feel free to finish and
I'll
we'll take it
question
from
first, and then I'll come back to it.
Okay, so I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who's watched online. We've got a massive 5 viewers, which is, I mean, what's that, about 20%? Same 5 all the way through, so thank you very much to them. That's 20% of everybody is watching, and they've said 10 out of 10 for presentation, so nicely done. And a big thumb's just gone past the screen, which means there's something like and somebody.
Had their drinks too, thank you.
So yes, we've had your drinks. Thanks, guys. And the question is, do we have an idea what proportion of guildies have a blog already? It would be interesting to get a breakdown of who has one and which social media they use. And I'd actually like to just extend that question as well to say, out of this presentation now, who feels more daunted by the fact of the idea of getting a blog, or who has been propelled into super keen and wants to start a blog right now?
Propelled.
Fantastic. So can we have for the benefit of the people watching from abroad, like show of hands, how many people already have a blog or actively contribute to a blog? So guys, that's about 5, and we're about 20 in the room, something like that. How many are now interested?
I think about
2. And
I'll do it in a journalistic way.
how many want to begin a blog or have been trying to and now feel more motivated to do so? And how many feel like it's something they want to do for a long time but are still not really sure how to start, or are not really ready to leap straight in?
I'm not sure how to start. What would concern me is the
Time commitment because you need to carry on with your existing print commitments.
No.
Sorry?
And not
wanting to be a marketer, that's what I said.
That's what's holding me back.
No, we're not.
No, we're not. We're
No,
just
we're
straight
not.
up writers.
Yeah, but you do have to market yourself when you do your pitch.
We're not marketers.
Oh, when you pitch, you're
We're not.
Yeah, but we're not talking to brands.
So what about, to play devil's advocate, what about something like an advertorial? Have you ever done like a supplements piece?
Yeah.
That would be advertorial, right? That would be marketing.
I'm not dealing with the client as a writer. I'm just dealing
Okay.
with
That's the big difference.
So if there was some separation between the team of editorial, sales and the client, is that something that maybe we can look into creating? Is there people that want to start writing as bloggers and not bother about all this kind of stuff? I'm coming back. We'll start that another time, Marianne.
Okay.
But we'll let Alistair finish
I
it.
think that's a really good idea. I think that would be a good service. For those
bright and have the content, but not want to.
Not all the other scary, techie, kind of difficult stuff. Interesting.
In that direction anyway. Doing working with DMOs now.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it's all beginning to merge. The lines are very much blurring. Okay.
They're really honest when they're talking to us, aren't they? About that's not commercial enough. Or things that even just 2 or 3 years ago you would never. Yeah. You would never think.
Never think it would happen. Yeah.
And they're really honest.
And that's really where I want to finish off. Besides thanking, I've forgotten your name, Emma, for standing there and listening to all this bollocks all evening. I just wanted to say, I think Alan's really touched on something. It is about it's about a frame of mind, and blogging and moving into this world of the world of digital content creation is it's very different in all sorts of ways. But actually, and one of the great things about the blogging community is they are so helpful. They're so engaged in a way that we never used to be as traditional writers. They'll always help. They'll always support. And actually, it's if you've got an open mind, I think you can. Once you get started, I think you can get hooked really quickly. So I would encourage everybody to do that.
Janine Marsh, who is very successful. It wasn't a blog, she started a site, The Good Life France.
Oh, yes.
It's now doing incredibly well. She worked very hard at it. She's getting lots of commissions out of that. It's the same thing with bloggers. You get commissions out of it because you're seen to be an expert, and you're right, and your presence. So it's not just making money out of the blog itself. It's actually a promotion of who you are and who you write.
Touching on that, we were just at Brit Mums Live, which is all mommy bloggers, and I was on a panel. I'm not a mommy blogger, but I was the moderator on a panel, and every single one of these bloggers had commissions. Remember, were you there? Did you hear me?
I was on another panel. Yeah. I was moderating another one.
So they all started as bloggers, and now they all have their little segments on a newspaper. One wrote a book. So in fact, one of them said, "Oh, well, blogging is dead because it's all about social media or whatever." And I said, "You guys all said blogging is dead," and of course they were like, "No, one of us did." But you're all now writing for magazines. Yeah. So they started as that, kind of like I did, and then. Actually, Alistair and I met at a blogging conference. He doesn't remember. But because of him, I got my first commission in print media because of something that he said. And then I happened to meet a travel editor, and I said, there's this piece I'd like to write. And he said, I'll commission that. So it's because of a travel bloggers conference.
Oh, that was the date thing, probably.
The date thing, yes. Anniversary thing. It was. I got a commission. So it's all hand in hand. We really worked very closely together. So it's I think that a lot of bloggers, they want to write, they want to express themselves.
Okay, we're going to take one last question from Mary Moore Mason on account of...
Well, this is not a question, it's a request for advice. As many of you know, I was Alistair's predecessor as the chairman of the Guild of Travel Writers. I'm definitely a print person. In 1994, I established a magazine called Essentially America. I'm now in my dotage thinking about setting up a blog. Now, the question is whether or not I should just focus, I want your advice on this, just on my experience as being terribly knowledgeable about America, which is what I've written about for too many years, whereas I actually want to expand into other areas. I am setting up a domain name, which may not be what you would recommend, called Merry-Go-Round. And the idea is that's what I do. I go around. The question is, should I just focus on my expertise, which I'm known for as a somewhat authority on America and American states, or is this my big opportunity to expand myself, which I'd really like to do and write about other areas? I'd just like your opinion on this.
You have to go with your heart.
I think you have to go with your heart. You have to write about what you... Because that's what will come across. Because it's not about... journalism is about speaking in the third person in the sense that we're not part of the story. We're the representatives of it. But blogs are different. They're about the person and the person behind it. So you have to...
I said it's about you.
You have to write about what turns you on. And then you can bring the other stuff in and they'll go, I didn't realise you. certain authority on, tourism in Pennsylvania. But
make sure you name checker that.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say to Mary Moore, I think that you should definitely do whatever takes your fancy, but you should always include your lovely, amazing, interesting anecdotes about all of your experiences.
Yeah.
They're the things that
Storytelling.
that makes you unique.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in. That's a really good point.
Well, that's what I. What? Oh, I was going to tell the one about you.
Okay.
Okay,
guys.
thank
I
you.
think on that note, we'll call it a day. Thank you to those of you out there in internet land. Thanks ever so much.